It began not with a red carpet or a flashing camera, but with a jarring moment inside a high-security federal courthouse in New York, where no one expected what was about to unfold. The media was caught off guard. The public was unaware, and the court officials were not prepared for the sight of Brad Pitt walking through those massive doors alone. No bodyguards, no publicist, no entourage. Just a determined man holding a tightly secured metal suitcase. His steps echoed across the polished floor, each one heavier than the last, and as he entered the courtroom, the room fell into a sudden and unnatural silence. Everyone turned to look, even the judge paused, in confusion before recognition dawned. Whispers rushed through the gallery like wind through a broken window. What was he doing here? Why now? And more importantly, what was in the box? Brad Pitt wasted no time as he approached the stand. His face was drawn with purpose and pain. His eyes unflinching when he finally spoke. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. I am not here as an actor or a celebrity. He said I am here because my friend Leonardo DiCaprio is missing, and I believe this box will expose the man responsible. Those words sent shockwaves through the room as the judge raised an eyebrow, and the jury shifted in their seats. Sean Diddy Combs, already on trial for human trafficking, extortion, and abuse, looked straight at Pitt. His expression unreadable, but his knuckles white around the edge of the defense table. Within moments, something in Diddy snapped and he turned on his own lawyer, yelling and pounding the table. Chaos broke out as guards rushed to control the situation while Pitt remained standing. Calm, composed, his eyes locked on the man he came to expose, the suitcase was handed to court security and moved to the prosecution. Brad Pitt had come not to speculate but to reveal, and the contents of the box promised to blow open a case already thick with dark rumors. It had all begun a month earlier when Leonardo vanished without warning. No message, no sighting, no trace. His close friends and family panicked. Leo was disciplined and habitual. He never disappeared without a word. Brad, who had been his confidant for years, immediately sensed danger. He reached out to Leo, IS mother and sister together. They searched his apartments and homes from Los Angeles to New York and even his remote French retreat. Nothing turned up. His phone was disconnected. His socials inactive, and every effort to get answers from authorities yielded vague assurances. It felt as though he had vanished into thin air. Then one night, a package arrived at Brad's Hollywood Hills home. No return address inside it was a single USB drive. Brad plugged it into his laptop, and what appeared on screen froze his blood. The video was grainy like footage from an old security cam and showed Leonardo tied to a metal chair in a dingy basement. His face bruised, his eyes swollen, his clothes torn. A voice masked by distortion issued a threat: $10 million within 48 hours, or he dies. It ended with Leo struggling to lift his head, his eyes meeting the camera. Desperate, Brad's hands trembled as he watched. Moments later, his phone rang, an unknown number. Against instinct, he answered. Brad. It's me, Leo. His voice was weak, hurried. They have no intention of letting me go. They are replanning something big, a purge. Anyone who knows anything will be silenced. Protect my mom. Protect my sister. The evidence is in my old house in Topanga Canyon in the basement. Steel box behind the cabinet. Use the code. Be careful, Brad. They are everywhere. Before Brad could respond, the line went dead, driven by instinct and fear. He moved Leo's family into his estate, locking down the property. Then he drove to Topanga Canyon under the cover of darkness and entered the old property. Memories haunted him as he made his way through the quiet house down to the damp basement. Behind a false electrical panel, he found a heavy steel box with a fingerprint scanner. Brad remembered the code from a night years ago when Leo had drunkenly shared it for emergencies. The lock clicked and the lid creaked open. Inside were folders, photographs, and hard drives. His heart raced as he skimmed through the material, but the images were too much to take. He vomited in the corner, unable to comprehend the horror captured within back at his home. He made multiple backups, hiding the most important copy in a safe behind his fireplace. He was determined to go to the police, but before he could, another call came. This time, a man claiming to be a detective told him to place the USB in a public mailbox for protection, warned him against going public, said the stakes were too high and any exposure would result in death. Desperate and uncertain, Brad complied, but weeks passed and nothing happened. No news, no movement, no sign of Leo. He realized then that the call had been fake, a trap, orchestrated by Diddy AS network. But thanks to Leo AS warning, Brad had a backup, and now in court he handed it over to prosecutors. The evidence stunned everyone. The first item played was a 12-minute audio recording Leo had captured secretly during a meeting at Diddy's private Cayman Islands villa. It revealed Diddy discussing a purge with three powerful men, a media executive, a senior politician, and a gang boss. "If you want this empire to last, no one who talks gets to live," he said chillingly. He mentioned the death of a Hollywood actor in a 2018 plane crash, implying he was eliminated. Then came video footage from a hidden camera placed in that same room. It showed Diddy holding a list reading names aloud. 12 people targeted, including Leonardo DiCaprio, as top priority. The room was in disbelief. Jurors shifted in discomfort. The judge leaned forward. Then came footage from what Leo described as the sacrifice ceremony. Recorded in a Paris wine cellar in 2021, the video showed a masked crowd. A young woman tied to a stone table surrounded by red candles. Diddy, dressed in a black cloak, read from a self-written scripture calling the woman a gift for the empire. His voice echoed the room. His eyes wild. Leo's journal accompanied the footage pages filled with despair, regret, and terror. One entry read, "I tried to distance myself, but he knows too much. He has footage of me. He threatened my family if I spoke out. I'm sorry, I waited so long, I just hope someone finds this." The final reveal was Project Babylon, a 200-page dossier documenting a trafficking ring orchestrated by Diddy. Since 2005, contracts lured women with fake music and modeling opportunities. Victims from Eastern Europe, Africa, and South America were flown in via private jets. Maps marked hidden safe houses in Dubai, Southeast Asia, and the Caribbean. A diagram showed Diddy's private island with an area marked the glass cage, a prison for victims. One note in Diddy's handwriting read after use, "Take them to the furnace, leave no trace." Brad watched as the courtroom collapsed into gasps and tears, jurors covering their mouths, spectators sobbing Diddy. As daughter fled the room, unable to watch the footage of her father, prosecutors displayed satellite images of the island and transaction records showing luxury gifts sent to influential individuals to cover up crimes. Brad stood silently at the side of the room, watching it all unfold. The evidence he brought wasn't a movie script. It was a blueprint of horror, a mirror held up to Hollywood's darkest corners. And as the judge called for a recess, the world outside began to understand that this trial wasn't just about one man. It was about an entire system of power, corruption, and silence now shattered by the bravery of a friend willing to risk everything. Brad Pitt remained seated near the front of the courtroom, his hands folded tightly and his eyes never leaving the screen. As more evidence was presented, he had said his part, but the impact of his words lingered in the air like smoke refusing to fade. The prosecution brought forward the next piece of corroborating testimony. A pre-recorded statement from actor Adam Sandler, who had also once been closely associated with Diddy. In the video, Sandler looked visibly shaken. He described being manipulated by Diddy, psychologically broken and coerced into humiliating situations that still haunted him. He spoke of private videos taken without consent, of parties that turned dark, and of being told that if he ever spoke up, his career would be over. Sandler said, "Diddy made me feel like I belonged to him, like I was a product. Not a person he traps. You makes you feel indebted. Like there is no way out." His confession supported Brad's claims of a far-reaching web of control, intimidation, and blackmail. The prosecution then presented security footage obtained from Diddy's cloud account showing him instructing a group of men to discipline an uncooperative associate. The video had no sound, but the gestures were unmistakable and chilling. The judge leaned forward. Jurors took notes, and one of them placed a hand over her mouth in disbelief. Diddy's defense team, now facing mounting pressure, launched their counterattack, led by veteran attorney Mark Agnifo, known for dismantling high-profile cases with surgical precision. Agnifo began by questioning the timing of Brad's appearance, the manner in which the evidence was delivered, and the possibility that it was manipulated for dramatic effect. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said in a voice calm and practiced, "let us not forget Mr. Pitt is not just a witness. He is one of the greatest actors of our time. How do we separate performance from truth? How do we know this is not just an elaborate script to destroy a man?" Already under siege, his words planted seeds of doubt in the minds of the jury, at least momentarily, but that doubt was quickly erased when the prosecution brought in a panel of independent forensic experts, specialists in digital authentication. They had examined the files Brad provided and confirmed they had not been tampered with. The metadata matched the timestamps aligned, and the encryption trails proved the files had been created over the course of several years, not days. This was not fiction, this was not rehearsal. It was the ugly truth. Diddy shifted in his seat, his usual confidence replaced by a stiffness in his shoulders. His fingers tapped anxiously on the table. He was no longer in control, and he knew it. The court resumed with further analysis of the files from Project Babylon, showing patterns of recruitment methods, false contracts, and payment trails to influential parties in multiple countries. They showed a timeline of victims, movement from point of contact to final destination. Many of these ended in remote places where no law could reach. The files included personal diaries, letters, and video testimonies from victims, most of whom had disappeared or remained in hiding. One testimony was particularly haunting. A young woman barely 19 speaking into a handheld camera, her face pale, her voice trembling. She described being promised a career in music only to be drugged upon arrival in Los Angeles, and kept in a villa with others, forbidden to leave, stripped of her passport, and told that disobedience meant pain. The files went further, implicating middlemen, enablers, assistants, and even government officials across multiple continents. There were signed documents, photos, plane tickets, bribes laundered through dummy companies. The scope of the operation stunned even the most seasoned investigators. All while the public outside flooded the streets. News vans camped outside the courthouse, celebrities posted cryptic messages on social media, hinting that they had known something, but had been too afraid to speak. The walls around Diddy were crumbling one brick at a time. And it all began with a metal box, and a man unwilling to let his friend disappear into silence. Finally, Brad was called back to the stand. One last time, his hands were steady, but his voice trembled slightly as he looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor, I am not here for fame or revenge. I am here because I cannot let my friend Leonardo be forgotten. He risked everything to bring this to light. And if he is still alive, he may be suffering every minute we wait. Maybe the last I know. This is bigger than any of us. But we have to act. I beg you, send someone find him." Brad's plea was met with silence, not from indifference but from gravity. The weight of his words anchored the room, and for a long moment no one moved. The judge then spoke calmly, yet with purpose. "I will authorize an immediate search based on the materials submitted and request federal assistance in locating Leonardo DiCaprio, as well as other individuals listed in these files. The court will not rest until we uncover the full extent of this operation." The courtroom broke into soft murmurs. The dam had finally burst, and justice, though slow, had begun to move outside. Reporters announced the breaking news live. Millions watched on screens and phones across the globe. Hollywood was shaken to its core, but amid the chaos, questions loomed. Why had no one come forward sooner? How deep did the corruption go? And would those still silent now find the courage to speak as Brad stepped off the witness stand? He was no longer the star of blockbuster films. He was a man stripped of pretense, defined not by roles or awards, but by his choice to act when it mattered most. And though the search for Leo continued with no guarantees of success, there was now hope. There was now a path lit by truth. Not everyone will understand the cost of what Brad had done. He had stepped into a world designed to protect the powerful and challenged its foundations. He had put himself in danger, not for profit or prestige, but for loyalty and for justice. And in doing so, he had inspired others. The court recessed that evening, but no one really left. The trial had spilled into the world, and every conversation, every headline, every whispered name added to the growing storm. Leonardo DiCaprio, still missing Sean Diddy Combs, still denying but no longer untouchable Brad Pitt. Still standing and more determined than ever to see this through to the end. Because sometimes, even in a world of glamour and illusion, real heroes rise not on screen, but in silence and sacrifice, in moments when the world needs truth more than it needs fantasy. This was no longer a trial. It was a reckoning. And the reckoning had only just begun.